to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two film studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and today in the Movie Film Studios Memorial Theatre, we sat down and watched the 2017 Cold War thriller Atomic Blonde.
We did
Spicy.
indeed, yes.
But before we get on with all of that, we have to do our traditional check back and, and have a look at how our film last week performed. Now, what was our film called?
I believe we released the 3D animated film called The Salary Movie.
We did. It was Assault and Battery for a while.
Yeah, it was. There was a working title there. I'm glad we ditched that in the end. I still don't think it was the best title of the film.
No. So this was a film whereby we market it for children, but it was as intense as The Godfather.
That's generally it. So I was talking to one of the production team down at MFW Digital, so
Yes.
Movie Film Workshops
Yes.
Digital, and I was saying it's a bit of a shame that it was such a highbrow conceptual film, and it's a shame that it never got a cinematic release.
Oh, didn't it?
And they looked at me quizzically, and I was like, well, what's that look for? And I was like, yeah, it came out. It's already been and gone. And I was just like, how did I miss this? And apparently there's this phenomenon with kids 3D animated films that they come out and then no one remembers them at all. And I'm just like, how is that possible? And they're like, do you know that they made a Madagascar's Penguins film?
Did they?
Penguins had a standalone feature-length animated film.
Really?
There's a whole bunch of these films just fall into this nexus of they come out, they disappear, they end up on Netflix and are constantly on like play loops for toddlers.
Yep.
So I think that's probably where...
Is that where our film is right now?
Yeah, I mean, we, again, have not managed to secure a deal with Netflix for release.
Yep.
We are still in the works with our own digital distribution platform.
Yep.
But yeah, that's sort of where the nut job, Over the Hedge. You know, the nut job is getting a nut job too. It may or may not have already come out. It's impossible to tell. There's this collective amnesia when it comes to like these mediocre kids animated films.
Did you know they made a spin-off of Cars called Planes?
Yes, there's a second Planes called Planes and Automobiles, and they're like fire and rescue. I have no... What's going on? See, this is the thing. There's so many of these that come out, it's impossible to track. I didn't even know that our own movie had been and gone at the cinema.
I was hoping for some kind of premiere and red carpet, but apparently not.
No.
It's just, okay, fine, I'll try and find it then on... I don't even know where it's...
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly.
Anyway, well, I mean, it's good that one of our films at least came out.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we've not had the best of luck recently with releases, but I'm sure we'll get numbers on how many people have watched it at some point. Some boffin in legal will give us those numbers at some point. Great. That's great news. I'm so glad, finally, one of our films is somewhere out there. Anyway, let's get on with it.
It's actually kind of good that you did a really horrible British accent, because that'll come up in our conversation about Atomic Blonde. But for the time being, we'll jump to This Week in Trailers.
Yes.
So what did we watch this week, AJ?
This week we watched a trailer with one of our favourite actors in it, and that is Dwayne Johnson, not The Rock. He's not The Rock in this film.
Yeah.
And the film is Rampage, based on, as you might expect, the video game of the same name.
So you say, as you might expect, I didn't know this video game. I vaguely recall it, like reading in a Nintendo magazine from 1998. This maybe horrible picture of this terrible game.
Yep.
But apart from that, after watching the trailer, I'm like, what the hell kind of video game could this possibly have been based on?
So it's based on a video game where you play as one of three different gigantic monsters. George the gorilla, Lizzie the crocodile or lizard of some kind, and then there's a spiky rat, I think.
Oh, right.
I think it's a rat or it's a wolf or something.
In the trailer looked very much like a wolf, but now that you have me thinking about these images from this video game from the late 90s, I think it might have been a rat in the video.
Yeah.
They may have taken some creative liberties there.
Possibly, it's based on the the best-selling game. So the game is a 2D side-scrolling destruct 'em up, I guess, where you play as one of those three characters, and you proceed to knock down buildings and eat people and try to score as many points as possible. Perfect thing to make a film out of, obviously. So the premise of this film seems to be that there's a big... Dwayne Johnson is a former military man
Are you just assuming that?
I'm just
because of
assuming
how
that.
cut he is.
No. I'm assuming it because later on in the trailer they're talking about how he used to be able to fly a helicopter.
Oh, right, he did.
And
too, yeah.
he's proficient at firearms. And now he's like a gorilla.
zookeeper?
He's a gorilla whisperer, but like
I think he's some sort of zoologist who.
yeah.
He seems to have found this gorilla when it's young in the forest, and now is taking care of it in the zoo. So
Yep, and then something falls to Earth one night, a canister of some kind, which spurts some kind of weird chemical
Green gas
all over this gorilla. George is his name, and then George proceeds to grow quite large.
yeah, so it seems to be a chemical mutagen.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. What do they call it? Genetic editing. is what
Genetic
they called
editing.
it, yeah.
I think mutagen might be from Ninja Turtles.
Probably, yeah.
But it's the same sort of premise. And like one day he's 6 foot and 700 pounds. The next day he's 9 foot and 1,000 pounds. And
Yeah.
he's obviously going to grow exponentially to
Yes,
King Kong
yes.
style sizes.
Yep.
And then we have some sort of downtown city rampage in the style of your Godzillas or
Yeah. But then none of the creatures in it seem to be anywhere near as big as Godzilla. They all just seem to be like maybe 2 or 3 stories high.
See, I feel as though because they keep growing, we haven't reached the trailer hasn't shown the point where they're as big as a skyscraper and then as big as the
we haven't quite hit the money shot yet.
No, exactly. Okay. So
and they hold back on the vision of the lizard creature as well. Sort of you see it at the end swimming underwater, and Dwayne makes some kind of crack about not.
Yeah, it's just like the only thing that this whole situation needed, I thought, was going to be a giant lizard, and then the giant lizard comes up, and you're like, okay, well done, Dwayne Johnson. See, the thing is, you can say if he wants his name to be Dwayne Johnson, that's fine.
Yep.
I'm still going to leave the pause for The Rock, so I'm like, good work, Dwayne Johnson. And you have to say The Rock in your head. As much as he doesn't want it anymore, it's still there, and there's nothing you can do about it.
You know, the weird thing is as well, even if you take out The Rock, you still have to say his last name. You can't just say, hey, Dwayne, how you going? It's always going to be, hey, Dwayne Johnson, how are you going? This film will be cataclysmically bad.
So it's from the same director as San Andreas, starring Dwayne
was he
Johnson. He was in that, and that was very Roland Emmerich disaster film. This kind of feels a little bit more Pacific Rim-ish without the fighting robots, which is the best thing about that film as far as I'm aware. I don't know. I still haven't seen it yet.
Oh my, you should see it. But this film, I believe, is trying to inject some empathy as well, because Dwayne Johnson has some kind of relationship, a very tender, caring. They show him sort of going through sign language with George while he's still a normal gorilla. Yeah. So it's implied that they've got some kind of deep loving relationship.
Yeah, and then he sees this creature that he's loved and cared for since it was an infant turn into this monster. Yep. And there's supposed to be this sort of heartfelt connection.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
I want to see the video game based on the movie based on the video game, because I'm sure that's coming
That
as
will
well.
probably bring it out. But I mean only to like iOS, and it'll be on the App Store for like, $2 or something
exactly.
like that. It'll be
and
horrible.
for some reason you'll only play as Dwayne Johnson instead of any of the other creatures that you're meant to play as. But anyway, we won't.
This is pretty much if Dwayne Johnson had been exposed to the gas instead of the rest of us, is pretty much our premise for Pacific Rim 2. Where who knows? Maybe they're doing a crossover universe.
I would want to watch that.
Yeah,
we should just do it. I mean, why not? Anyway,
all right. Trailer 2.
Trailer 2. A film called Bullethead. And the weird thing about this film is that I cannot find any information about it whatsoever.
Yeah, so the trailer is so crazy that we went, who directed this film? You type Bullethead into Wikipedia, it doesn't exist. You type Bullethead into IMDb, and it comes up with like a Steve Harvey character or something like that. Yeah. You search for Adrian Brody or Antonio Banderas or John Malkovich who are in this film, and it doesn't say that they're in this film. It could be a joke. It could be like a like this trailer that they've put up on YouTube that may not be a film or not.
You know what it is? Because there's so many high-profile actors in it as well, it feels like one of those fake film trailers that someone like The Late Show might make, or one of those American late-night comedy shows might make a fake trailer for, because John Malkovich is in this, Adrian Brody is in this, Antonio Banderas is in this, some other actors are in this as well, and they do flash up on screen like Academy Award winner Adrian Brody, Academy Award nominee John Malkovich.
And then just Antonio Banderas.
And then it's like directed from the director Paul Soleil. Who the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I went back into Wikipedia to look at what he's done. He's made like 3 films, and I've heard of none of them. Yeah. So
just to get into what the trailer shows. So Adrian Brody and John Malkovich and a third younger person who I don't know who they are, seem to have been criminals doing...
Rory Culkin.
Which
is one of...
Could be Macaulay Culkin.
It is. It absolutely is, yeah. It's one of his siblings.
So not Kieran Culkin. There's another Culkin.
There's another Culkin, yeah.
Sure. Culkin's skulking out there. They are criminals and they've done one last heist, and they're inside a warehouse and they've locked themselves in and like, if we can get away with this, it's the one last score and we'll meet up with our loved ones and the world would be a better place. And then it's like there's police outside, so they bar all the doors so the police can't get in. But it turns out they've locked inside with them like a Rottweiler or some sort of demonic dog, maybe.
Yeah, it's some kind of spectral entity, like some kind of monstrous dog.
It could just be a dog. It could just be a guard dog who's killing them. It could be a Stephen King possessed Cujo-style dog. Yeah. It could be a hellhound demon and there's supernatural overtones.
Yeah.
It just doesn't know. And all you see is like them trying to hide from this, beast, and you're going to catch flashes of it, and they're like there's blood dragging down the corridors, like it's killed someone and dragged them away. And and then the tone's really weird, and then Antonio Banderas comes in, and there's these weird shots of he's the police director who's trying to catch them, and once you're a criminal, you're always a criminal, and who knows? I have no idea.
I don't know what this film is about. I don't know if it's a horror film. I don't know if it's a thriller. I don't know if it's
an action heist.
I have no idea. It could be a comedy, for all I know.
There's this weird shot where Adrian Brody's like hiding inside a grand piano, and I'm like, Adrian Brody and piano? What does Roman Polanski has anything to say about this? And then like a bead of sweat drips down his forehead and then drips and hits one of the strings on the piano and it rings out, and he's just like, oh no, the demon dog / regular dog / hellhound / possessed dog that we don't know might hear it and come after me. It's crazy.
I almost got the sense that maybe maybe it was one of the lines in the trailer, but there's part of me that wants Antonio Banderas to be playing a werewolf in this film, and that dog that's chasing them is just him in werewolf form. And that's where I kind of want this to go.
See, again, this is one of those films where it could, if there's a good enough payoff at the end, it might actually be all right. And it's not. It looks horrible. No. It looks absolutely horrible.
Speaking of payoffs at the end.
Yeah, that was my clumsy segue into our feature film this week, which was...
Atomic Blonde, 2017, starring Charlize Theron.
I believe it's pronounced. But there you go.
Whatever. And James McAvoy. That's how you pronounce it, right? No.
John Goodman,
and Toby Jones. I
do really like Toby Jones,
and some other actors as well. So anyway, so
you forgot one of the Skarsgårds, Peter Skarsgård, Stellan Skarsgård's son, and Alexander Skarsgård's brother. Apparently, there's a clan of Skarsgårds, and there's like 7 children, and 6 of them are actors or something like that.
And they're going to go up against the Culkins, aren't they?
Yes, it's the Culkins versus the Skarsgårds.
Anyway, let's talk about this film. So, I remember seeing the trailer for this film, and it's very much the trailer for it is super bombastic, right? It's very gratuitous. It feels like a very risque, out there kind of bold, comic booky style film. The film is not really like that at all.
It starts out a little bit like that.
It does.
The opening shots are very stylized. So it's set in 1989, around the events of the tearing down of the Berlin Wall.
Yep.
And so you get this very sort of neon punk aesthetic. It's got this very late 80s soundtrack. It's got this sort of spray paint graffiti text that sort of pops up on the screen to tell you where you are.
Yeah.
And it feels very sort of stylized and...
you kind of get flashes of Sin City at the start.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, when you find out that it's based off a graphic novel, that's how it feels. Yeah. They've taken that Zack Schneider sort of 300 comic book feel. They've taken the Sin City feel, and they've gone, well, this is how graphic novels translate to screen. So here are the same styles that we're going for. And then 25 minutes later, you're in the middle of this Cold War thriller where the basic premise of the film is that there is a list of secret agents out there. Someone has it and they're trying to sell it, and Charlize Theron is sent in to find out who has it, where it is. Because if it's exposed, then all the secret agents on both the Russian and German and American and British sides will be exposed, and it'll be bad for everyone except for the people who control that information.
Yep. And that's pretty much the gist of this plot. But the thing I found with this film is that the story is inherently quite simple, but the film itself is obtuse. It's really confusing at times, and I found it really hard to figure out what was happening at various points. And then eventually you get to the end and like, okay, that's actually a really simple story. It's just not told very well.
No. So again, it's a film that may be worth watching. About 3/4 of the film, way through the film, I was wondering whether we should tell people to watch it or not tell people to watch it.
Yeah.
It is kind of worth watching. So if you haven't seen
is.
it and you're thinking about seeing it, I would recommend not continuing to listen because there are spoilers, as always.
Yes.
Normally it doesn't matter because we're spoiling films which aren't worth watching. This one has an ending which makes the rest of the film make sense,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make up for the fact that you were confused as fuck all the way through the rest of the film
Yeah.
and going, well, why is he doing that? And is he the double agent or are
Yeah.
they the double agent? And then I think halfway through I jokingly said that I think Charlize Theron's character is the traitor.
Yeah.
And then at the end it turns out she was.
Yeah.
But then it also turns out she was a triple traitor.
Yeah.
So she was a secret agent for the British government
Mhm.
who was pretending to be a traitor for the Russian government,
Yeah.
but was actually an American spy the whole time.
Yeah.
And so they have a series of stages of reveals of that.
Mm.
And when they reveal that she's secretly the Russian agent, I'm like, didn't they do that with Salt? That horrible Angelina Jolie is a spy film.
Yeah.
And that was horrible then. And then I felt really betrayed. And then they did like the third reveal and it kind of went, oh, that actually kind of makes the rest of the film make sense.
Yeah.
It kind of feels somewhat worth it. For
Yeah, the ending is mostly satisfying, I guess, but it just doesn't. I didn't feel satisfied.
No, because they never really made you feel anything for the characters.
Yeah.
There's one, probably about a 15-minute single shot action sequence in the middle where the stakes actually feel raised. It feels as though Charlize Theron's trying to protect the guy who's memorized the list.
Yep.
Her trying to keep him alive puts her in danger, and she gets beat up. She's killing a bunch of people in and out of like a East German apartment, and getting stabbed and whacking people over the head with telephones and checking how many bullets she's got left in her gun. And it does feel tense, but it also feels so out of place against the rest of the film. The rest of the film has this very neon glow lighting. It has the sort of weird stylized 80s music playing in every bar or club or TV show that they go in. And then you have this sequence which feels much more like The Children of Men, which is this hugely intense, weirdly lit and shot sequence.
Yeah, I mentioned this to Isaac while we were watching that sequence, but my theory with this film is they started with that sequence is what they initially had in mind when they were making this film, and then realized that to actually sell that sequence, they need to put a film around it. And so they did that.
Yeah.
And that's why nothing makes much sense, because that sequence is the best part of the film.
Yes.
As much as I don't really like single camera shots because I find them gratuitous, that is the only point in the film where I was like, oh, I'm actually quite invested in this now. I kind of want to see how this ends. But then everything else that happens to lead up to that, and pretty much everything afterwards as well, is kind of like, take it or leave it. But you touched upon the aesthetics of this film, and I do have to actually compliment them. And that's, I guess, something that we do for films we don't really like. It's beautifully shot. They spent money on this film.
Just the attention to detail in props to make it feel like it's 1989.
Yep.
The East German subway trains, which look old and corrugated irony, and all of the cars are of the era. All of the buildings and the architecture is of the era.
Yep.
The TV, like the attention to detail there is just spot on.
Yeah, it's almost got a very noirish look to it.
Yeah, exactly.
At certain points.
It's almost like a neon noir. Is the term I thought. Yeah.
It's immaculately shot as well. There's a very much aside from that single shot sequence, like there's very clear ideas in how it wants to be shot, and the cinematography in it is very stylish. But everything in it, everything that you're watching, I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't really understand what they were motivated by. Everyone's kind of betraying each other for reasons that aren't evident at all.
You never know which side anyone's on. And they make a point of that. I think James McAvoy's character right at the end says, if you can figure out what side you're on, then you can figure out more than I know, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it's kind of confusing the whole way through, because you expect that there's a double agent, but you don't expect everyone to be working both sides. And you don't expect everyone to be working triple sides and just they all have their own name and then a code name that they refer to each other as.
Yeah.
And you're never sure why they want the information or who it's going to benefit if it does or does not come out. So
I feel like the reason why this film is so confusing is that a lot of spy films have done the whole double agent thing before, right? They've reveal at the end or close to the end that this person that you've spent the film with isn't who they say they are.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of films like this, and maybe any other films these days that go for that spy genre or the spy tropes, basically say, well, we can't do a double agent thing anymore, so it's going to have to be triple. No, quadruple.
Quadruple
and
agent.
also, every other agent is a triple agent as well.
Exactly.
Let's just throw them all out there. Everyone is working for everyone else.
Yeah.
And then everyone is working for no one. Because there's like one character in that film that appears for like 5 minutes who doesn't seem to work for anyone and then is killed. He goes to there's a watchmaker who has this list.
Oh right, yeah.
And we, the main Charlize Theron's character meets him at a certain point and requests the list. And then another character goes in there at a certain point, and I have no idea who he was, who he worked for, or why he was
it. Russian KGB.
Oh, was he?
And he was the guy who killed the British agent at the very start of the film. But this is the point. Like
again,
there's another guy who's like, oh, he's KGB and he's Spetsnaz, which is like maybe German secret police.
Yeah.
I don't know these terms. And then there's MI6, and she's her point of contact there is C.
Yeah.
I'm like, isn't it supposed to be M?
M, yep.
But maybe they've made it slightly different. Who knows? Like everyone has their own sort of.
I like the idea. So this is set in the 80s, right? So I like the idea that this happens at the same time that the James Bond films are happening. So this was the Timothy Dalton era.
Yeah.
So like this is an intense, visceral kind of emotional high stakes. And then you've got James Bond over in the corner just going, hello, I'm vodka martinis, anyone? Yes.
So there's actually a thing where Michael Caine did a series of secret agent films that was sort of around the same time that I think maybe Roger Moore was playing Bond.
Okay.
And apparently the Germans and the Russian actual people who worked for the police, they were more scared of the secret agent that he played, who was just a regular guy who lived in a small town and went about his daily life and was pass on secrets. It's like, we were never scared of James Bond because he'd go in the casino and say, I'm James Bond. and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we know you're here. We're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah.
What they were more scared of these like sleeper agent people who would come in and assume these unassuming roles.
And this is the thing I mentioned to you actually while we were watching this film. So Charlize Theron's character, what's her character's name? I know her real name is like Lorraine because that's sort of implied at the end. But anyway, her character is obviously the atomic blonde of the title. So she's got a very, very white blonde hairdo. She's always dressed in incredibly upmarket and very like risque kind of clothing in the middle of East Berlin, where everyone is in jumpers and like ratty jeans and stuff. And I'm like, you're a spy.
Yeah.
Like, you don't blend in
Not at
all.
There's one point in the movie where she wears like a red wig and contact lenses to disguise her identity.
Yeah.
And within maybe 2 minutes has taken them off. And is kicking people's asses again.
But and the thing is, like, with that, I was like, okay, you're either a horrendous spy because you don't blend in at all, or you're the best spy ever because you've adopted a character that is so outlandish and so ridiculous that no one would suspect you of being a spy. It's like, it would be like if someone like, who's a famous blonde socialite these days? I don't know. Let's say one of the Kardashians. Eventually we find out that they're actually a spy for the CIA.
Exactly.
Like, that would be it. Because there's a sequence in this film where they're trying to ferry out this guy. So this one guy has the list, or he's memorized the list, so they want to take him into one of the Berlins that's safer.
Get from East Berlin to West Berlin.
Yeah, so they want to give him asylum, basically. So the Brits are trying to get him out of there to keep him safe. So what they do is they decide to take him out while a protest or a demonstration is going on against the Berlin Wall. Right, so there's a whole bunch of people outside, and they go out there, and then we learn that is it the Russian agents or the German agents?
One of the two.
One of the two know that they're about to take him out, and so they've got snipers set up, and that's fine. But they all know what Charlize Theron looks like at this point.
Yeah.
So she's marching out there in the complete open with all these people with her platinum blonde hair. And they're like, well, you're going to spot her. Like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just, cut your hair off or put a wig on or something to disguise the fact that you are who you are? And then there's a whole bunch of things that happen, double crossing.
I mean, I suppose because it is based on a comic book, you kind of expect that the action is a little bit realer than real, and then we have certain expectations for these spy thriller kind of films that never really live up to any account of what they were actually like. So I think I mentioned that this reminds me a little bit of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which again is apparently like. Again, I don't know because I wasn't a spy at all at any point yet.
Are you sure? Is this a front?
But that's very very slow, tense. They know there's a mole. They go into these secret meetings. Someone's over the course of like 15 years looking for them and trying to ferret out who is exactly the person that they're after. And it's all very slow and tense. And parts of this film feel kind of very slow and tense, and I was like, this is supposed to be. Well, it's from the director of John Wick, so you would expect, and it has its fair share of close combat, shoot them in the face, head explode, blood against the wall kind of stuff. But it's also this weird sort of contrast of this very slow moving, who's the mole, who's got the information, find your contacts, ferret out who's, and it's just like, oh. This is not what I was expecting, because they show one half of that film in the trailer and they don't show the other half at all.
Yeah, I feel like they tried to market it as a high-octane comic book film, and it's just not that at all, but at parts it is.
Yeah.
It's a film that I don't think knows what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I would have preferred if it was more of a slow-burn thriller, where they actually spent time establishing characters and reasons for doing what they do beyond... I'm a spy and it's my job, because that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I didn't empathize with her character at all, and they tried to inject all these feelings of like, the original spy that they killed was her partner. Like
they had a romantic relationship, which I think you said to me at one point. That's going to come back and it's going to be more important. I'm like, I'm not sure it is. And who was right there?
You were.
I was. It had absolutely no bearing on anything in the end, which, like, in itself is strange. If you'd said to me, I think that relationship that she's having with that agent who died is going to have absolutely no bearing on anything at all for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
I go, you're 100% wrong, because there's no way they would introduce it. But instead you said, I think it's going to be super important, and you were 100% wrong, because they just did nothing with it.
But here's why I thought it was super important, because at the start of the film, when we're introduced to her character for the first time, she's in a bathtub full of ice, like a cold bathtub, and she gets out and she goes over to she's all beaten up and bloody and clearly been in a fight, and she goes over to a drawer, opens it up, pulls out a Polaroid which is of her and this now dead
British
spy
secret agent,
and sets it on fire.
Yeah, it seems as though it might be important.
And I'm like, because this film is told in like flashbacks and it's told in flashbacks, so the film is set during her debriefing. And then the end of the film is sort of set just after that. But because we then know that scene where she's burning the photo is a flashback, I'm like, oh, well, clearly she's burning it because he's somehow burnt her. Like, but no, it's just there for no reason. And it's not like we know anything about that guy anyway. Like, the film opens at the start with his death. And that's it. That's all we know about this guy. And then she comes in and apparently has a relationship with this guy, but that's it. There's nothing told. It's just, you sort of said, it's like a dossier, right? Classic spy thing. It's like, right, character 1 has a relationship with character 2. That's all you need to know, and therefore you need to then apply empathy to those characters because of that. And that's it. We're not shown anything, we're just told. And that's not great filmmaking.
So fundamentally, if we are gonna actually unravel the film, it is a spy thriller with a time period aesthetic.
Yep.
And where we would improve on it is make the character relationships more believable, the story less confusing.
Yes.
Or more confusing.
Even more confusing.
So people walk out going, yeah, I definitely understood it. And so, like, a story that's, like, sort of somewhat confusing, people feel like, yeah, I can say it's somewhat confusing, but if it's so confusing that no one understands it, no one's willing to admit that they didn't understand it.
Look, we're clearly on the verge of making our own version of Atomic Blonde here. Now, I would truly want this film to be Oscar bait.
Right.
Like we've aimed squarely in the middle for most of our films, right? But this film, I feel, the one that we make, we've got everything. It's intrigue, mystery. We've got a time period. The Oscars love a weird time period.
Yeah.
We've got confusion. We've got stakes. We've got everything. Like, to me, this feels like the kind of film that they announce as like a Best Picture nominee.
Right. Okay. So before we take this any further, maybe we should take it to the green room.
Yes, we should.
All right.
Here we go. This is the elevator music. It's a long way up. It's on like the 50th floor.
Well, I thought we were on like the 3rd floor looking down on all our lawyers. They're like...
They're very far down.
Right, okay. I didn't realize we had 48 floors beneath us of lawyers. When did that happen?
I don't know.
Oh my God, it is getting out of control.
Okay, here we are.
All right,
in the
okay,
green
great.
room.
So I suppose it begs the question: Are we doing a spy thriller action? Because I mean, if your goal is for Oscar bait,
Yes.
then like John Wick and Atomic Blonde don't get nominated for Oscars.
No. Why is that though?
I don't know, but your Tinker Tailor Soldier Spies do get nominated
Does
for
get
Oscars.
nominated, yeah. So maybe we just need Gary Oldman.
It's possible. Like, it's possible we could do that. I actually feel like what you do is you don't aim for the best film Oscars. You don't aim for the best script or best director or best supporting actor. You aim for the best costume or the best lighting or the best cinematography.
The technical awards.
Yeah, the technical awards are where it's at. So like you can market it as Academy Award winning films, winner of 4 Oscars. It's because the costumes are just crazy and out there. It's the Mad Max effect, right? So that's what I think that's what we go for.
All right.
Pick a time period which has freaky deaky lighting and costuming that you can sort of take wherever you want.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to do the Cold War because that's been done, right? Spielberg's done it a few times. This film obviously did it. Tinker Tailor was that Cold War?
I don't remember.
Let's just say it is. So let's get away from that. We don't,
Why don't we do like Cold War 2, like the future Cold
future?
War, and that way when they're wearing like 80s style spiky shoulder pads, so we can pretend it's the 80s, but it's the 80s version of the future.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
okay, like Back to the Future, basically. Yeah.
Post punk neo spiky, like, and we can just like hit it really really hard with the costuming and go really out there.
So that means it can be set in 2017, right? But
it
it's
could
like
be
the 1980 version of 2017,
where something different happened, an alternate history where the Berlin Wall wasn't torn down.
It was built 2 like walls up.
Yeah, exactly.
They
made a double story wall, and now this is Cold War 2. It's the end of Cold War, the sequel to Cold War 2.
Yep. Cold War 2, the freezing.
Yeah, I mean, we don't call the film Cold War 2.
No.
The war is called Cold War 2. Just like World War 2 was the sequel to World War. This is Cold War 2, the follow-up to Cold War.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of calling it Cold War 2 because it implies that there was a Cold War 1 film as well.
Possibly. I actually kind of feel as though we need to do that. Like, Atomic Bomb, I think, was the graphic novel was called like The Coldest City or something. Something like that made sense. And Atomic Blonde, they're quite clearly going for like that sort of sex factor to get people through.
Because The Coldest City, no one's going to... It sounds like a weather report,
exactly.
Honestly. So they went for something a little bit more sexy.
So I think we should do the same thing as well.
Okay.
So
we make a graphic novel first that has a very generic name.
Yeah.
And then jazz it up.
Exactly.
All
but
right.
I mean, I don't think that Stephen... Is it PH King or V King? I forget.
Stephen... Oh,
V King?
V King.
Yeah, sure, V King. He's not the greatest illustrator in the world, but it doesn't matter. So long as we can say that it's based on a graphic novel, we can do all the Dutch tilts and the...
picture in picture.
Yeah.
Let's do, some nice harsh lighting. Yeah, that's fine. We don't even need to release that graphic novel. Like, so long as it's somewhere.
Exactly. It's just like, it's like based on the graphic novel. It's just like, are they drawings by your kids in the bottom of your drawer or stuck to your fridge?
You know what it is? It's like, I've sat at my desk and I've got like a pack of Post-it notes and just done like a little frame by frame, like a flip book. Yeah.
And it's just a guy pulling out a gun and shooting someone and going, you know what? That flip book would make a really good movie.
Oh, and at the start, it's subtitled 2017 as well, so you know that's the year. So that's it. It's the perfect.
That's
and
exactly where
we
it comes
should keep the yellow tone as well.
from.
of the
right.
posters.
Sort of like the Sin City did that. It's black and white, and we only do red.
Yeah.
So, do we do black and white with only yellow, or is it just like that?
I just want a yellow tone across everything.
Yellow, exactly.
So, like, Atomic Blonde has a nice grey, blue, kind of cold, Soviet style feel. I just want this to be yellow.
Just yellow. So,
Just yellow.
that amber filter over the top of everything does remind me quite a lot of that. Whenever anything's set in Mexico,
Yep.
it always seems to have that amber filter.
Yep.
So is that where Cold War II is you know what? If we're talking about walls that are coming down,
Yep.
and we're talking about a political animosity between the US and another country, it could very well be this is post Donald Trump's giant wall. He did it. It wasn't just an election promise which he had no plans on fulfilling. This is it's Cold War II. It's not the Berlin Wall anymore.
No.
It's the big the wall between Mexico and the USA.
If this is an alternate history as well, I like the idea that the US bought the wall off Berlin, and that's how he was able to do it. Like
brick by brick, they shipped it across.
Screw trying to figure out the logistics of building a giant. Just get one from somewhere else. Just get the Berlin. They're not using it anymore. Ship it over to the US. Done. That's how. I mean, they shipped the Statue of Liberty in pieces. Why not the Berlin Wall?
Exactly.
Great. Okay, so
So in this film, which we have not come up with a title, which is set in the period known as Cold War II, between Mexico and the US, an agent from the US has to cross the wall to get into Mexico to find some piece of something, or in this it's in Atomic Blonde it's a list of secret agents. I think that's been done to death, and it was done to death a long time before Atomic Blonde did it.
Like Bond did it at some point as well back in the day. Like,
so what's this piece of I don't know what you do it. I mean, obviously we can contextualize it to be 2017. So is it like a Spotify playlist, or like? I mean, I don't even know if could that be a thing that's been encrypted with information?
Okay, so the wall's gone up, right? And Mexico's pretty much cut off from the world. So the only way that they can communicate with everyone is through Spotify playlists.
Yeah.
So that's it. They're hiding secret data in Spotify playlists.
I think so, but I also think like the playlist is so chill and so relaxed that anyone who listens to it just doesn't think about war anymore. And the Americans are just like, this playlist is so good that it's causing people to be so relaxed. And I mean, they're the aggressors in this, I believe. I think it will make it so they actually want the war to continue. But this playlist is just making people so chill that they're kind of like, they don't care about the war anymore.
Okay. So this playlist has kind of psychological,
So there's data encrypted into each of the songs, and I think that's kind of like maybe worming their way in people's psyches. Because I mean, it's really just, Atomic Blonde does a thing where it's just music from the 80s. We do music from 2017. I could not name you a single song which has come out.
But
this
it's
year.
alternate 2017.
It is
well.
alternate
so it could
2017.
be any kind of songs. Like maybe the music of Berlin at that time, which I think was just David Hasselhoff, which is Pink. I think they mentioned David Hasselhoff in that film as well. Yeah, there's a weird thing in Germany, in particular in Berlin, about Hasselhoff, because he was there when the wall fell down.
Yeah, he sang a song on top of the wall, and he to this day credits himself as being one of the people who was primarily responsible for the piece.
Yeah. Now, nowadays, like in actual 2017, the Hoff is really just a guy that gets drunk and pees his pants a lot. But I think in alternate 2017, he is like the biggest pop star in the world.
No, he's not.
No?
He's the president of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to have to say to Andy Garcia, I know we hired you to be the president in all of our films, but not in alternate reality.
Alternate reality is fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So David Hasselhoff, recognized for his peace brokering abilities in Cold War One, has now been elected prime minister. Not prime minister.
Why not? No, let's make a prime minister of the US. So
there's this whole.
So even though the US
here.
seceded from Britain like years and years ago, for some reason they got back together, they patched things up, and now the US is actually under the monarch again.
That way we don't get into legal battles with Andy Garcia.
That's right,
we did contract you to be the president of the US, but in this film it's actually a prime minister of the US, so we can actually get David Hasselhoff to play that.
Alright, so the Hoff is the prime minister of the United States. The Berlin Wall is between the US and Mexico, and it's twice as high.
And it's actually called the Berlin Wall as well, for some really strange reason.
Yeah.
They're like, this is nowhere near Berlin. This
Yeah.
has nothing to do
Yeah.
with
The
East
Hoff
and West
didn't, the
Germany.
Hoff didn't realize that Berlin was actually a place, and that's what the wall's named after. He
Yeah.
just thought it was a type of wall.
Yeah,
So that's why he said, I would like one Berlin Wall, please.
yeah.
Great. Now, so Mexico is sending out data through Spotify playlists. The songs themselves are causing everyone to chill out. So there's some kind of psychological mind control thing going there. Makes them sound like they're a bit not above board.
No,
though.
I mean, I think there's a moral grey area. I think we'll introduce a scientist character who came up with the ability to encode Spotify playlists with mood-altering data.
That's right, and the US wants him.
The US wants him. That's it.
Yeah.
And he's in Mexico, and he's working against like he's in captivity or in prison because he's like, I refuse to do this. I think people should be able to listen to whatever music and not have themselves influenced.
Now, I like the idea. So let's say that is the case, and they need to get the scientist out of Mexico. They're trying to extract him out of Mexico. Now, Atomic Blonde had the whole thing of like, well, you are the worst disguised spy in the world. Now, I really want our film to do that as well. So I think that the Hoff should be the spy. The most recognized person in the world should be the spy that goes into Mexico to try and extract the scientist and bring them back to the US. What do you think?
I don't know if he has the acting chops, if I'm being completely honest. And
That's true. We are
in my
chasing-
head, in the trailer, it has like pretty much every actor we have there has to be from Academy Award nominee or Academy Award winner.
Yep.
And I feel like we can then go and David Hasselhoff as Prime Minister of the US, and kind of everyone's like, oh, he's playing the Prime Minister, and doesn't realize that there's no Academy Award tag above his head.
Yeah.
But I think for everyone else, and there has to be like 30 or 40 of them, and they all have to be Academy Award
So even
winners.
minor like one-note characters need to be Academy
Absolutely.
Award. Okay, well that's true. That's how you get.
That,
That's how you get an
if
Oscar.
we're going Oscar Gold,
Yeah.
then that's, you know what we can call the film as well?
What?
Is we could call it Tequila Gold. And I feel as though just having that gold in there, the Oscar people are going to go like, there's gold out there. Our statue's made of gold. And there's a subconscious connection between the two. And they don't realize it, but we've actually encoded the word Tequila Gold with mood-altering
Spotify playlists.
Spotify playlists to make them think that maybe we should nominate this for at least a technical award.
This is so good. Okay, so who then will be our spies that go into Mexico? So
it really doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
If you can think of someone who has been Academy Award winner.
let's go. I mean, I mentioned Gary Oldman.
Yeah, sure.
Has he won it?
I don't know.
I'm sure he has. He's done a lot of stuff.
He has
that
done
he
a lot of
should have
stuff.
Won for.
You'd feel as though.
Anyway. Yeah, let's assume that he has. Let's get John Malkovich. John Malkovich is just a nominee, though.
Exactly.
Not good
The
enough.
nominees did not make the cut. I am sorry.
We can now cast Leonardo DiCaprio.
We can.
We finally got one.
I think after all of this time, when there's so many films that we've made that he could have been in, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't
Not
make the
good
cut.
enough.
It didn't make the cut.
Not good
And
enough.
Tequila Gold is going to be the first film that he's in
Yep.
as Academy Award winner, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep. Kate Blanchett, she's won a.
Yeah, I'm sure she has. Yeah, she for Elizabeth.
Yep. Judi Dench.
I mean these people have been in our films
They
though.
have, yeah.
What about like Holly Hunter? I think
she's
one. Helen Hunt. All of the people whose initials are HH who have won awards. We can get them in.
Who else is there?
Jeremy Irons.
Yep.
Did Emma Stone win for The Help? Because if so, I think she'd make
She might have. Yeah.
a great like.
And she won
lead.
for La La Land.
And sure,
There you go,
why not?
Emma Stone.
I think we'll put her in as our lead.
Yep.
And she can be the titular Tequila Gold.
Tequila Gold. Yeah.
But people aren't really sure. Like Atomic Blonde is like, again, it doesn't really have any bearing on Charlize Theron's character, and it doesn't really mean anything.
No.
And they're like, all the audience is just going to be like, is that supposed to be a reference to her? Is she Tequila Gold, or is?
And I think inexplicably she shouldn't have gold hair.
No,
just make it black. So that you have no idea.
And then you like, is that even Emma Stone? I only really know her as red-haired Emma Stone, and then she went blonde for the Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and apparently her natural hair color is blonde. And Judd Apatow told her to go red, but now we're Judd Apatow too, who tell her to go black to revive her career, which doesn't need reviving because she's still pretty much on top of her game.
Yep.
So that's how that'll all work out.
Okay, great. Now,
and so who's our scientist character?
Who's our scientist character?
I did suggest Jeremy Irons. I believe he did win. I think at one stage we weren't sure, and I think in one of the previous podcasts we say is he a nominee or a winner, but he did win in like 92 for a film I've never heard of and looked up and don't remember.
I can only think of him in The Lion King,
yeah,
which I don't think he won anything for, but anyway, I'm sure he has. We'll do the research.
We'll get him to play the same character he played from The Lion King.
so the
scientist has a scar in the same place that Scar has a scar, and he breaks out into song and dance.
A bunch of hyenas turn up. All right. Well, speaking of The Lion King, then we have to have Whoopi Goldberg in there. So Whoopi Goldberg plays one of the hyenas in The Lion King, and I know that she is an Oscar winner because I think she won for The Color Purple. So she should be in it.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's going to be doing, but maybe a getaway driver or something. Every single person in no matter how little screen time if it's like a crowd shot, and there's just people walking by. Oscar winners, every single one.
Does it have to be acting Oscar winners, or we could do the editor in Dances with Wolves can be a background extra because technically they are an Academy Award.
Anyone that has access to one of those gold statuettes. In fact, I'll say this, right? If you can turn up to the set with the Oscar, that's how you get into our film.
Sure.
Right?
And you also have to be holding it in every shot that you're in. You have to be holding the statuette as well. Have you seen the thing where Anna Paquin, who won for the piano, her Oscar statue is actually kind of like she's just had it in her kitchen.
Oh, really?
And it's gone a little bit corroded and rusty, and people are like really upset with her. Yep. So it'd be kind of funny when everyone comes in, they're all sort of comparing how good. It's like, I won for the 1969 film The Sting as composer of the music, and like it's just like all the gold plating has just come away, and it's this rusted old man in fact, sort of like sitting behind. Yeah.
Aside from our primary cast, everyone else, you will be placed into the film based on how good of a condition your Oscar statue is in. So if you want a meaty role with a couple of lines of dialogue in there, you better have a pretty ship-shape Oscar statuette.
So we actually break the script down into number of lines of dialogue or screen time, and then we line everyone up and just assign roles. And I mean that way, Emma Stone, who like won like last year, hers is in pretty good nick. So
she won for Best Actress as well. So
one of the animators on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, who's inexplicably 119 and still alive, and has got one of their tiny little like miniature dwarf Oscars sort of shows up, and he can be like some guy lying in a bed somewhere.
Fun fact about the Oscars as well, the statuettes, anyone that wins them doesn't actually own them. They're actually owned by the Academy, and you're meant to give them back to them at a certain point. Like, if you don't want it anymore for whatever reason, it actually goes back to them.
So you can't sell them on.
No,
like Olympic gold medals. I think people like go, I mean, I have the record, and I don't need this physical thing. Michael Phelps. Could Michael Phelps be in our film? But
we do need a sports person.
We do, but only if he like melts down like 10 of his 100 gold medals and forms it into a sculpture of a person holding a sword. That's the only way that he can be in our film.
What would he play? I mean, we need a character for him. Look, we need a competing spy character, right? So we need someone to act opposite Emma Stone. So in Atomic Blonde, it was James McAvoy doing whatever. So Michael Phelps in our film could be the opposite spy who Emma Stone meets in Mexico. He's Michael Phelps is a sleeper agent in Mexico.
Yeah. And speaking of people who just like physically do not fit in, you've got this like 7 foot tall guy with like size 20 feet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, no one in this film needs to look like they fit into the roles at all.
Especially since all of like the extras in the Mexican cities are going to be like 80-year-olds costume designers.
You know what's good about this as well? The best part about setting it in Mexico is that we can be crazy with the outfits, because obviously the Day of the Dead is it's a festival that happens now because of Spectre. That's a whole different thing. But we can be completely crazy with the costumes because of that, right? Like, what if we set this whole thing during the Day of the Dead festival? So everyone is dressed up in the most flamboyant and extravagant costumes ever. That's Oscar gold right there.
Exactly. But it's got that sort of like alternate future.
Yeah. Everyone's wearing like weird neon rings around them
exactly,
as well. That have no inexplicable purpose. Like,
no inexplicable purpose.
Yeah, that's right. So, no inexplicable purpose.
Inexplicable purpose. And hoverboards. Do we just take all of the alternate sort of future from all of the 80s films, and just like have
Yeah, anti-gravity, hoverboards,
hover cars,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, why not? Hover tacos.
Oh dear, that's horrible.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, we're just chasing best costume, okay?
So,
It
I mean,
doesn't
are we
matter.
putting all of our eggs in that basket? Because, like,
yeah. What other basket could
I mean,
we
because
possibly
we could
put
do
in?
best original soundtrack, we do costuming,
Yeah, okay,
editing, lighting,
yeah.
practical effects. I'm all for costuming. If you like, in terms of I think this is what a lot of films do badly is that they try and make a good film, like a good overall film.
Yeah.
And they never go, we're going to target this one Oscar.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're going to go all out for
Yeah.
that one Oscar. And
Yeah.
no one's really gone, costumes. We don't care about script. We don't care about directing. We don't care about cinematography. We don't care about acting.
Yeah.
Just costumes. And just like every scene is a costume change.
Yep.
Like and every person is wearing like just
Yeah.
and I think what we do is we mine every Academy Award winning film
Yeah.
for the best costumes.
Yeah, and
we just
mix them all up.
mix them all up.
Yeah.
So like everyone walking down the street is just wearing like 18th century Victorian thing from Sense and Sensibility, and like there's Maximus from Gladiator for some really weird reason.
We should get the actual costumes though.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, why bother making our own? Like, they're never going to be as good as the ones that you saw in Gladiator or Sense and Sensibility, and they're all in museums somewhere. So, why don't we just borrow them?
Just borrow.
Just borrow them.
Do you know anyone who owns like the Planet Hollywood? I'm sure they're like
there's plenty of just sneak in
they're all behind glasses.
and Jimmy the Lock and stuff.
Okay.
I'm talking
You know what we could do as well? We could make a film of like stealing the costumes.
Yeah.
I think last week you mentioned the Heart of Darkness thing, which was
Yeah.
like a making of.
Yeah.
I think we definitely give GoPros to all of our Ocean's 11 type crew who are stealing the costumes for this film as
and
well.
We make the spiritual sequel to Ocean's 11 and call it, I don't know, Lakes 10.
Right. Okay.
Terrible name, but that's
As
fine.
absolutely horrible. There's no Tequila Gold. Tequila Gold just makes you think of Oscars. It actually doesn't. It makes you think of like
It makes you think of alcohol. Actually.
Is that where we get a product tie-in? Do you think
I think
we can?
so. I think we have to be sponsored by some kind of tequila company. And I think what we should do as well, if we are going for Oscars and everyone in the film is going to be holding Oscar statuettes, every bottle of Tequila Gold should be shaped like an Oscar.
Yeah. And I mean we make the again. I don't really drink that much. Tequila is slightly yellowish, right?
No, it's white. It's completely
Really?
clear, I think.
I think I have. We'll try and make a
What's wrong with
yellowish.
your tequila?
Yeah,
It's gone
who
off.
knows? The worm has turned. No, we make a yellowish tequila.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a goldy kind
Yeah.
of color. So it comes in a glass bottle shaped like an Oscar,
Like an Oscar, yeah.
statue.
Yep.
And yeah. So
I almost want. So who's playing our scientist again? Some Academy.
it was
Award
Jeremy
winner.
Irons.
Jeremy Irons. I want him to dress up in an Oscar outfit as well.
So it kind of just looks like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. Again, reminding people of great Oscar-winning films.
that's right.
And I think like when we write the script as well, we kind of have to have in all these really sort of oblique references to other films. So it's
yeah.
like, sometimes reminds me of my childhood, and I feel like a child of a lesser god. And there's so every line of dialogue has like a name of an Oscar-winning film in there. It's like, I remember going to my prom. My partner couldn't dance. It felt like I was dancing with wolves.
And then Emma Stone turns to Michael Phelps at some point and man, the odds are against us. This is going to be a titanic effort.
Exactly. So yours was seamless. Mine was like incredibly clunky because I couldn't think of.
I'm trying to think of like films that have won Oscars as well, and like Titanic's pretty. Yeah, it did win, right?
I'm sure. I think
Sure.
it won more Oscars. Like, and we maybe just call the character Ben Hur. Just like,
But it's a female.
yeah, sure. That's
Ben-
Emma
Ben
Stone's character.
H-E-R, yeah, Ben Hur.
Ben Hur. Right.
Yeah,
sure. Just because otherwise, like, people might cotton on to what we're doing.
This is possibly the best film we've ever made.
I think so. I mean, really, I don't think anyone else is actively gone up. I mean, people are like, oh, that's Oscar bait or whatever. Like, by the time that they were.
No film sets out to actually be Oscar bait. We are. We are just
exactly.
100% like
Unashamedly.
We're like, you know what we're like? We're trapped in the forest and we've put like a piece of food inside one of those like rope noose things on the ground,
Yeah.
and it's bait for Oscars, and we want them to be ensnared by it. and they're going to hang upside down until they give us that damn Oscar
Yeah.
for best costume. That's it. We only want one. We just want one. Surely every other film that's come out this year can just skip it, right? I don't care. We've got every single costume that has won best costume in our film. They're all there. Our script is just full of film references of films that have won Oscars. Every single actor in this film has won an Oscar. How can we lose?
Exactly.
How can we possibly? I'm going to build the trophy.
It's not even. It's
right
not even
now.
subliminal. Like it's
No,
liminal.
no.
It's right in your face. This is Oscar. Think Oscar. When you think this film, think about Oscars.
Can we just have like Oscar flash in the background occasionally? Just like we're doing it liminally. I know we're doing like let's do it subliminally as well.
Someone
Why not?
walks past a trash can. Guess who pops out? Oscar the Grouch. Just like it's everywhere. It's so in your face.
But Oscar hasn't won an Oscar though.
Surely, like one of the Henson Company people have one.
Oh, so but I mean, are we going to go by like, are you tangentially related to someone that's won an Oscar?
You know,
Because technically that's us as well.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, maybe we just get like Sir Ian McKellen to operate the puppet, and that'll be enough.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. And it's his voice coming out of Oscar
Yeah.
the Grouch. You know how they always recast actors. You know when Richard Harris passed away, when they were filming the third Harry Potter film, and they had to replace him with that other
Michael Gambon.
Michael Gambon. That's what'll happen. I'm sure kids will love Oscar the Grouch being voiced by Ian McKellen. Has he won an Oscar?
I'm sure he has.
Surely he has.
For like Henry VIII, or I think there was a
Possibly for Lord of the Rings as well.
I'm not sure they got they did the right thing, right? It was all costuming. It was like winner of 11 Academy Awards, including
That's right.
best catering. Is best catering a category? Because it should be. It's so important, and no one thinks about it.
All right, Tequila Gold.
Tequila Gold.
Catch it in cinemas just before the Oscar season.
Yeah, exactly.
starts.
Well, this is the problem. Normally we put these films out or at least try to the week afterwards, so we can talk
Yeah.
about if they were successes or failures. Oscars are in normally
February.
mid-Feb,
Yeah.
so we may have to sort of
Just wait.
make it and wait.
Yeah.
Because if you release a film too early, as everyone knows, people forget about it. People have
No.
short memories. I mean, we
More-
talked about the
you know what's-
Salary movie, right?
Yeah.
That's so easily forgotten.
Well, this is the thing. You know what's going to happen? More so than people forgetting it, that's going to come out. Every other studio is going to look at it and go, holy crap, we know what they're doing. They're clearly going for Oscar bait. And then they're just going to do the
We're
exact
going to
same
get
thing.
into a Deep Impact Armageddon
Yeah, exactly.
studio
They're just going to
war.
make the
Yeah.
exact same thing. And then we're going to get trumped because you know what they're going to do? The one costume that we make in our film that's original, they're going to put it in their film along with all the other costumes, and then they'll beat us.
Exactly.
So we're screwed. So we release it.
Should we pick an easier category then? Or are we all in on costumes?
Oh, we're all in on costumes.
All in,
What are we
alright,
going to
okay.
do? We're going to return all those costumes we just stole?
That's true.
I mean, it's so hard to sneak back in and put them in there.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
As Antonio Banderas told us in the trailer for Bullethead, once you're a thief, you are always a thief because you've taken things. I don't know what his speech was about, but it was pretty much that.
I don't even know what character he's playing, but anyway. I think that's a wrap.
I think
On
so.
Tequila Gold.
Tequila Gold.
Yep. We've birthed it. It's out there.
It's out there.
But not yet.
That's it. Exactly.
January, I want to say January 14th.
No, absolutely not.
The day before the Oscars.
The day before the Oscars. It's I don't know. Let's say the Oscars are on February 20th. We are releasing this on February 19th. It has to be right in the minds of the people who are at the Oscars going.
I'm not even sure when the cutoff date is for nominations. I mean, we may be like Oscars 2019. I don't know if I can wait that long.
That's true. I mean, I suppose who's voting? Is there any way we can sort of like bribe them as well? Like,
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
I think it's
one
I
of the
think
actors is going to leave their Oscar statuette behind. We'll just
exactly. I mean, I've got a mate who owns an engraving business. There's no reason we can't just custom engrave our own plate and stick it on the bottom of the Oscar. There's no reason we can't get a bottle of Tequila Gold and just get our own custom engraved
Yeah, for
plate
sure.
and said
And-
winner of best original alcohol in a film. It's done.
we can sweeten the deal as well. Those costumes we stole, just give them one. They can have one, whatever one they want. All those great costumes, they can just pick and choose one, and a bit of Oscars return, bit of gold in return. I think that's the way we do it. Yes, I think that's a wrap.
All right. Any housekeeping to?
As always, there is always housekeeping. One of the things I keep forgetting to mention is that we have a website, and it's a very pretty website with a whole bunch of bits and pieces and our photos on there and some bios and who knows what else will be on there in the future. In fact, if you like our theme song, it's also on there for download. It is moviefilmstudios.net. So use the browser of your choice to go and check it out. We are on iTunes. We are on pretty much every other podcasting app in existence, even the ones that haven't been created yet. We are on Facebook. We are also on Twitter. We are at moviefilmstudio. Why Twitter? Why? You've increased
Was
the
that movie film O Studio OOOY? Is that how it's spelled?
That's
or?
how it's spelled, yeah.
Right,
Put that
okay.
in. I mean, Twitter increased the character count to 240 now, and yet your usernames cannot have more than X
If
amount of
people
letters.
tweet like at hashtag or at movie film studio, can they add the S like afterwards and it's not like a link?
Just probably need to put a space after
Yeah.
it.
Just do it, guys, for us.
Yeah.
We would really
We
appreciate
would really
it.
appreciate it. If you want to write a review as well, we're also on YouTube. But if you want to write a review on YouTube or iTunes or your podcasting app of choice, or some random website we've never heard of, but you want to send it to us anyway, please do. And there's a chance you might get it read out. On
So
this
there's
very
no. Have
podcast.
we got any more star ratings on iTunes that have bumped
that's-
us over the limit where they'll
that's,
actually let us read our reviews, or is it one of those
I
sad state
think,
of affairs
I think
where?
it's still a very sad state of affairs.
Thank you all for listening this week. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.